Hi, how's it going? Um, so yeah, let's talk about some stuff. Yeah. Um, I've spoken about my affair today. I'll continue to speak about things um, in different ways because it's important to me. Um, my affair, but other stuff as well. Um, but the parts of my life, I mean, I'm going to talk about the emotional stuff that I went through after my divorce. Um, so after my divorce, yeah, I was going through a lot. Didn't want my divorce, but was trying to free my ex-wife, give her the ability to free herself. Um, and through that, I was also dealing with the feelings from my affair that came up again, because they did. Um, the feelings of the loss of my future with my ex-wife was overwhelmingly painful for quite some time. Um, and it was almost like when I got to San Diego. I lived in Oregon with Heather, and being in Oregon under the context of my history there and everything I was trying to build there, I was trying so hard to maintain my strength around my divorce and everything emotionally, and I was. But once I got out of Oregon, when I fled my cabin, it was almost like um, there was part of there was part of me that was um, that I that as soon as I left the environment of Oregon, it was almost like um, in some ways I had freed myself from the from feeling kind of guilted um, about even thinking about the emotional complexity that I had regarding my affair and being divorced and knowing that the person, Laura, who I had my affair with, was in my life in some way by digital means in some fashion I didn't really understand. Um, Going through all of that and then fleeing Oregon, it wasn't why I fled, but it was kind of a component of what happened in my, in what was in my head. And I was still dealing with the divorce emotionally. It was tough. Um, but I was thinking a lot about the affair, just in terms of Laura being in my life again and what was coming up for me again and everything that hadn't been there, that I hadn't allowed to be at the surface in any regard. I put it away. I buried it deep. Um, and I didn't know what to do with it. When I was in San Diego, it was almost like, I mean, that I didn't, I was, I was living in a tent and then I was living in a garage. And it was almost like, despite the fact that I was paranoid, despite the fact that I felt all of the things I felt about the state of my life and, everything else, um, it was almost like that whole circumstance was kind of like kind of like a sanctuary for me to just be away from all of the paranoia, be away from the location of heartbreak regarding my marriage dissolving, because it was very heartbreaking to even still be in Oregon after the divorce, despite the fact that, it just was. It just was. It was hard. It was. That place, yeah, it was very difficult. Um, and so when I got to San Diego, after a while, the longer I had to think about things and sort through things emotionally and psychologically, the more I realized that I was emotionally free in a way, um, to just think and to just feel and to not judge myself for the things that I was feeling, the things that I was going through regarding my feelings for anything. I was finally free. And through some of that exploration, I mean, it didn't, it was still difficult at times because I had conflicting feelings about stuff. I did. I was still every amount of authentic about the safety of Heather's life and everything else when I was out there and hoping that she was okay, you know, everything like that, and all of the feelings about the divorce and how sad the divorce was. But it was also, I was thinking about Laura. I was thinking about the feelings that came up there. I was thinking about, I was thinking about a lot of stuff, and I was allowing myself to feel a lot of stuff. All the while, the context of speaking to Dave Withers on the phone and everything else, and just hearing the judgmental evil in his voice. Um, uh, it just, I knew at that point, regarding him, I knew that there was nothing but just. It was just that he's not a man of emotional complexity, and he's certainly not a man of um, healthy of a healthy emotional landscape, or not a man who is able to respect somebody who has a healthy emotional landscape. I knew that at that point in my life. I knew. I was just very aware of it. I had already dealt with him enough times. I heard enough judgment out of him. I heard enough judgment out of him regarding me and Heather and, the people who the person who Heather pursued a relationship after the divorce and everything. I heard enough. I didn't need to hear any more out of him. And when he was judging me while I was in San Diego, under the context that I was in San Diego under, I didn't need to hear anything else. I mean, I already knew his history as the man that he was to women and his own daughter. I didn't need to know much more. It was what it was for me. And I didn't care if he knew or heard that I was, going through what I was going through regarding my feelings about Laura at that point. I didn't care. I was a divorced man, and it was a divorce that I didn't want. It was a divorce that I fought really hard to not have occur. It was a divorce that I gave my all to prevent. And even still, I know that he still judged me for it. Didn't bother me. His feelings, his opinions of me could never affect me. Not in any way that makes me feel bad or guilty or whatever. The only thing that has ever transpired there regarding him affecting me is my own anger towards, the brazenness about him judging me. Because I don't care about what he says or what he thinks. I don't. I could never. Dave Withers is a man of very little emotional complexity. He's a man of very little respect regarding anybody who doesn't operate the way that he does, emotionally speaking. He might understand He might be able to identify somebody who is emotionally deep and complex, but it doesn't mean that he has the ability to relate or understand them without being incredibly judgmental, without being incredibly expectant that they operate the way that he does, and whatever else. And that was part of why I already felt that way before I was in San Diego, and that was part of why I genuinely was concerned for Heather being around him. Without speaking to me about it, without speaking to me about the type of guy he was, or anything else. Because Heather is, that was the last thing that she needed, was her father to come into her life, and her father to be somebody who has no way of dealing with her, or has no desire to deal with her emotional life or her whatever as her father. It was, but after the divorce, particularly after the part where Heather and I stopped talking, it wasn't my business, even though I still felt the way I did. And, considering my feelings about Laura and everything, wasn't Dave's business, quite frankly. And none of it was. My feelings about anything, not Dave's business, really. I've known that for a long time, but, Dave is somebody that, because of the context in which he abandoned his daughter, context in which he abandoned her mother, and everything else, Dave overcompensates with anger, judgment, and acts of safety, or, whatever, to ensure that nobody, after he's in her life now, conveniently, nobody would ever hurt her again. Which, on the one hand, sure, I get that, but on the other hand, you got the wrong guy. Because that was never me. I was never actively going to harm her in any way. And the fact that you still feel like you have any right to grill me or pretend like you're my father or anything else is absolutely ridiculous nonsense in every facet. And you could never be any of those things to me, and you never will. Period, Dave. It doesn't matter to me. You can judge me. I don't care. What if I told, if I told you right now that I felt feelings of love towards Laura? How would you feel? Do I care? Do I care how you feel about that? No. If I said that about anybody, would I care how you feel about that? No. Should I? No. Should anybody? No. You have no right to judge anybody, Dave. Particularly in the context of romanticism, love, respect, dignity for women, dignity for relationships, respect for being responsible emotionally towards people in any regard. You have no place to judge anybody, Dave Withers, and nobody should ever give you that sort of power over them, or that sort of that respect for regard over them. And until you learn that, your opinion doesn't matter and shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. Shouldn't matter to anybody, quite frankly. Sorry to say it. Not really, though, because it's only in response to your actions or lack thereof, or the content of those actions. Meaning, fully your responsibility in every facet. And it doesn't matter to me if it makes you angry to hear that. If it makes you angry to hear that, guess what that means? It means it's time to grow up. But I've said that to you many times at this point, and it hasn't happened. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm going to upload this one, and I'm going to keep talking. We're going to keep talking.